think just for a moment, maybe the time you thought you were all by yourself, you're standing there all by yourself, you don't feel God. You don't feel Him around you, don't feel Him in you. It seems like everything's coming against you. Everything's on. It's just a horrible time. But still inside of you, there's a work going on. It's a work going on. I think about that. I went through a downtime once, several years ago. And I was angry. Now the thing is, we get angry at the wrong time. So we should be praising God, because that's basically what this song is about. Keep praising Him. Matter of fact, there's a line that says praising through we need to be praising through our circumstances. But I was angry, and I would yell. I would drive in my car, and I'd cry. I'm a crier, sorry. I'd cry, and I'd yell at God, and I was angry at Him. I was angry at everything around me. And it threw me into a bad time. The thing is, God never quit working. He never stopped working on me. And that's what we've got to remember. It doesn't matter what's coming at us or the feelings that we have, that we're all alone. We're standing here all by ourselves. God's never left us alone. Once He's placed you in the palm of His hand, once your name is written. A few years back, we gave out the little thing. It was a hand, and it had the scripture, and we put in there everybody's name. Rick, you remember that? Vince, you guys remember that? And the reason why we did is once you're placed in His hand, and your name, the Word says your name's written in the palm of His hand. Once that happens, He never leaves you by yourself. Doesn't matter what's coming at you. That song is an anthem. I've been saying that since the first time I heard it several years ago. It's an anthem to us to remind us that God's at work in us. No matter what, it can be the worst of things. Right now, God's at work in Afghanistan. Looks bad, doesn't it? Looks really bad over there. But God, the people that are there that know God, God's at work in their lives. You know, there's a hurricane. I think it's a hurricane. It's a major storm. Pastor Dave just showed it to me. Coming up through the Gulf, going to hit Louisiana. It's there now. It's moving in, and it's the same day, right? Same day as Katrina hit. Is that what you said?
16 years ago today.
16 years ago today, Katrina hit. There's people in Louisiana that don't know God, and they're afraid. But I'll guarantee you the ones that know God, they shouldn't be afraid. Now why? And I'm going to talk about fear today. Why? Because God doesn't leave them. He's right there in that storm with them. So whatever the storm is that you're going through your life, realize that God's not leaving you nor forsaking you. He's there with you every step of the way. And so I guess that's my introduction to turn over to, if I can get there, get this crazy thing to work. Turn over to Mark chapter 4. Because it doesn't matter. Again, we have, as believers, we have dominion over the fear that wants to come at us. You know, I don't care what party. Well, I do care. But I'm going to say it like this: I don't care what party you vote for. I don't care if you vote for a third-party candidate that's just taking away votes from whoever. You're not going to win. They don't win. The only one that ever had a chance close to that made a difference in presidential politics was Ross Perot, in my lifetime anyway. Thing is that it doesn't matter who you vote for. If you listen to both sides of the aisle, or you listen to all sides of the aisle, they're not trying to tell you what they're going to do better. They're trying to put fear in you of what their opponent is going to do. Now, it doesn't take a lot of reasoning to realize, what side I'm going to be on, okay? But they promote fear. They don't promote the betterment of America. They promote fear. Media, their job is to promote fear. They want you afraid. They want you afraid of everything. Fear for most people is a terrifying, it makes sense, is a life-changing event a lot of times. We get into fear and we don't think clearly. We don't reason clearly. In this passage here, I'm going to read out of the Message, and he's going to have it up in the New King James. That's good, but the one passage I'm going to get to, I'm going to repeat both in the Message and in the Passion, because they all say it's the same, but there's a little bit different twist to it, like Debbie said. most of you have a smartphone anymore. My mom even has one. She's always posting things on Facebook, sending me messages, all kinds of stuff. I'm just not sure it was a wise idea that I bought it for her, but she's got one. Anyway, about all of us have those handheld computers anymore, which is called a phone. So download the YouVersion Bible, and you can get about every version in there that you want. Now, you can get other ones. That way, you've got to look at if your favorite scripture is the King James, that's fine. If it's the New King James, doesn't matter. But then you can look. So I'm going to read over here. I'm going to read over here because it'll turn it just a little bit to where to give you a little bit more understanding what they're actually saying there. Because remember, and here's the deal: the King James was not written by Christians. Those guys that the king had do that, the scribes, they weren't Christians. But they went with the language they had of the day, okay? That's what we talk about here. So I'm going to read out the message. It says this, verse 39 through 41. Awake now, he told the wind to pipe down and said to the sea, quiet, settle down. The wind ran out of breath and the sea became smooth as glass. And Jesus reprimanded the disciples, why are you such cowards? Don't you have any faith at all? And they were absolute awe, staggered. Who is this anyway? They asked. The wind and sea beckon. The wind and sea at his call beckon. It goes on into. I'm just going to read that one part there. It says, "Why are you so afraid?" In the passage, haven't you learned to trust yet? And in the New King James, what's it say? Why are you so fearful? How is it you have no faith? They're all saying the same thing, but a little bit different look at it. Well, why was that the disciples, most of them were fishermen. They had been on the sea before. They had seen storms come at them before. But they were afraid. Why was it the fear struck? Fear struck, for one thing, fear struck, and God was able to use Jesus to teach them something about faith. And so when we enter into a time where fear is coming at us, we want to remember that type of passage right there. So wait a minute. If I'm afraid, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Just because, and it doesn't mean, my grandkids like to tease me. Because I've never teased anybody in my life. Isn't that right, Nona? Bree, I don't tease you. If I know your name, you're in trouble. That's all it is. I'm sorry, Jen, I know your name now. The thing is that I don't like to ride rides. And it's a lifetime of thing. I just don't like it. I don't like kids' rides. So we went to Disney a few years back. And we were at Silver Dollar City. We had taken all the grandkids to Silver Dollar City. I said, I'm not afraid of nothing. I took 10 grandkids to Silver Dollar City, just me and Deb. That's fear wiped out. So we had the older 5. We just go over and do what you want to do. Meet us back here at certain times. And we took the young ones over to the kids' rides. So they talked me into riding some stupid ride with the kids. Now, I'm in the same seat with Lainey. I don't know why I got stuck with Lainey. But Lainey, because to this day, she reminds me of that ride. Because I'm telling you, it's like this little thing like this, I'm afraid. I'm not afraid, but it just messes me up, okay? The thing is so they tease me about that, and I'm not really afraid, but we went to California with Mindy and her family. We went to Disneyland. And so they taught me, I'm walking around, I'm feeling good about it. I'm walking around, I'm, eating and stuff like that. And then they talked me into riding the Cars ride. The Cars ride is like this and this. It's a child's ride. I can't do it. It's something rises up in me. Well, it is a fear, and I know it's a deep-bedded fear. And I try to fight it, and I realize as I reasoned it out, if I can't control that vehicle, I don't want to be on it. That's all I got. That's all I got to say. The thing is that fear will come at us in a lot of different ways. We have to remind ourselves that fear, as a matter of fact, psychologists say that we're born with 2 fears. Now, I don't know that I totally agree with it, but I can see this. The one is falling, and the other is noise. Now, I have a grandson that he covers his ears on loud noises. Now, is that a fear or just a reaction? I don't know, but loud noises bother him. None of us like to fall. I remember as a kid, I'd dream I was falling out of bed, probably my brother's kicking me out, type of thing. Or I'm sure Dustin has dreams now. He fell down the steps. Thanks for turning around and reminding me he was back there. But over a period of time, we develop more fears. They just sort of come at us. And some fears we just grab a hold of and say, no, I can't do that. I'm afraid of that. And that's the worst things we can say, is that we're afraid, okay? Because what we're doing is we're cementing it in us, in our mentality, that scares me. I was watching Aaron yesterday up on the scaffold all the way to the ceiling. And I thought, in the fellowship hall, it's all the way to the ceiling. The scaffolding's all the way up, and he's climbing around like a monkey up there, you know. I think he is half chimpanzee, because it's the way he climbs on things. The thing is that I'm looking at him, I go, I'm glad it's him. I couldn't do that. Now, I've already convinced myself I can't do that. And I realize that I can. I can climb up there. It's the getting down that bothers me. I'm just going to live. I'm going to stay there, right? I've roofed houses before, climb up, carry the shingles, all this kind of stuff. But it's the going back down, that's a long fall as far as I'm concerned, you know. And I figure somebody might fall, and it just might be me, you know. But and there was a psychology class, asked 500 people, what are you afraid of? Those 500 people listed 7,000 fears. That's a lot of fear out there, isn't it? 7,000 fears. But thing is, as believers, we're not supposed to be afraid of anything. That's what Jesus was telling the disciples on that boat. Why are you afraid? Where's your faith? Where's your faith at? There's some bad effects for fear. Somebody just jumped off something back there. First one, fear makes life a wretched experience and warps our personality. My personality is warped because my aunt, I know where it goes back to. Morton Pumpkin Festival. Put us on the Ferris wheel. I'm probably 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old, something like that. And all of a sudden, they stopped the Ferris wheel at the top. And it's like, what? Why would you do that to a kid, is what I want to know. They stopped, and my brother and I, we're screaming and crying. They had to bring us all the way back down, stop the Ferris wheel, and let us off. And from that time on, I didn't like heights. So I blame it on my aunt. You know, the thing is that fear is a dark room where negatives are developed. It's the negatives of life. Fear comes in, and it's a dark room where the negatives, everything comes at you that's negative. It's developed there, and it's housed there, and it grows there. Fear will prevent one from doing the will of God. Fear will stop you. You'll say, well, I can't knock on that door. I can't knock on that door. I might see somebody. They might talk to me. I can't knock on that door. Take a couple, pass them on. The thing is if we can't knock on the doors, who's going to tell them about Christ? And the thing is all you have to do is take one of those up there to put on the door. You don't even have to talk to anybody. But just by doing it will change your concept of what you can and can't do. I remember when I was first in the insurance business. Fresh out of the Army, brand new in business, never had an adult job in my life other than the Army. And all of a sudden, they wanted you to visit with people, to get, what do we call them, prospects. They wanted you to prospect. And I remember when I was by myself the first time, I was with my sales manager for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden I'm out on my own and doing the route, and having to talk to people. And the first time that I sold my first insurance policy, the lady had to ask me about it. And then I fumbled and I stumbled, because I was afraid. What if I do this wrong? What if I quote it wrong? And finally, as I fumbled and stumbled, I finally turned to the lady. I said, ma'am, I think this is a great policy. Can I come back tomorrow and present it to you? Because I had to get myself composed. Fear had overwhelmed me. You know, fear renders us useless. It causes us to feel like, I can't do this, there's nothing I can do, and we feel helpless, we feel useless. Fear brings the very thing that we fear. Fear brings on the very thing we fear. It puts us to where when we're helpless with it, all of a sudden, I'm afraid I can't do this. You can't do this. It's like I'll go to the amusement parks and I say, I can't do that. I can't get on that ride. And again, I mean, by saying those things, I get talked to into it once in a while. How many have been to Disney World? Raise your hand, Nathan. I know you've been there like several times. Nathan, let me ask you, have you ever ridden Tower of Terror?
No, I don't like. I like the
Yes, thank you very much. I have a friend. Oh, but you have, Bethany. Okay, so my son and my wife talked me into writing the Tower of Terror. So all the way up, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. So we get up there and they set us down, right? And you're like in a bench. And what's cool about it, at first you're looking out almost over the whole park, aren't you, Bethany? You're looking at it, oh, this is cool. And all of a sudden, the floor comes out. Boom! And you drop. My hair went like this. My legs went like this. The thing is that they don't stop with just one time. You come back up, okay, it's over. No, boom, you drop again. By the time I got off that ride, I was convinced I don't like rides. And there's a good reason for that one. I thought they killed me. The thing is that it will present in you the very thing you're afraid of. Now, I won't ride it anymore. You guys go ride it. I'll sit out here and enjoy the popcorn and the whatever. But fear is a disease that brings on illness. Did you know that? If you're afraid of a disease, when you get in fear of it, as a believer, it opens the door for that disease to come on you. Now, you can believe me or trust me. Fear causes us to think things that we shouldn't think. You know, I've died once and came pretty near it another time. First one caught me by surprise. I didn't know when it hit. But the second time, I had time to think about it. I had time to think. They're going to wheel me down to do this procedure. And the whole time prior to that, I was weakened in my physical state. But my mind is alert, okay? Your mind is alert. And your mind doesn't change its strength because you're weakened physically unless fear gets in. And the thing is that they're wheeling me down, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to stay calm. I want to live in peace. I want to stay calm. And so I'm all the way down there, and they take you into the procedure room, and I'm laying there. And this doctor that I had was convinced I'm going to have surgery that day. They're going to cut me open, split my chest, and do all that they need to do. And I really didn't think about that other than when they wheeled me out. I said, I must be better off than they thought I was because they didn't do no surgery. And I'm laying there until they bring the family. I think I said this a little bit last week, until they bring the family. And then she starts going through this whole... Then fear decided to rise back up. And the thing I had to fight for about a month and a half there was the fear of I don't want to be cut on. I've never had any surgery. I guess I sort of have now with the stent, but I've never had. But fear will rise up in you and it will overwhelm you. It will try to take you over. You know, fear will cause a person to be lost, according to Revelation chapter 21 says. But as for the cowardly, the faithless. Now, faithless means you're in fear. Because the counter to fear is faith. Jesus said that back here in Mark. It says the despicable, the murderers, the perverts, the sorcerers, the idolaters, all the deceivers, they will find a place in a lake of fire. Now, that's sort of a broad-based thing. And I don't want you to think, okay, you're afraid of going on the Tower of Terror is going to place you in that category. That's not what I'm saying. But fear will keep you from excelling into where things that God wants you to excel in. A spirit of fear was not placed in us. Turn over to Matthew chapter 8. A spirit of fear was not placed in us. Here's what was placed in us. Well, Matthew chapter 8. How did I do that? Oh, okay. That's really the sort of where we were a minute ago. We read it out of Mark, but the same thing in Matthew. But turn over to 2 Timothy chapter 1. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 says this, For God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of a sound mind. Of love. Power of love and of sound mind. The thing is that we have to remind ourselves who we are. We have to remind ourselves what God's already given us. He's not given us that spirit of fear. So we have a counter to when fear comes in. We have a right to speak to it and say, be gone. And I know that when we get at the things that seem trivial, but what that is just a small seed trying to grow in you to present a whole lot of other fear. You know, I once had a relative that I think she was afraid of about every disease that's out there and tried to have about every, but because of it, she started developing those different diseases. She died prematurely because she was trying to fend it all off with prescription medicine, and her walk with God was not strong enough to present to her the word that should have risen out of her and said, no, that's not true. When Rob Westbrook was presented with the fact that he had stage 4 cancer, that is a fearful event, okay? But he didn't succumb to the fear. They told him all the negative stuff. He didn't succumb to all the negative. He said, that's not what I believe. And he went right to what he believed was in the Word. That's what happened to me in Alabama, is I decided I'm not going to listen to what they're telling me, because I know I'm married to a nurse. Oh my gosh. Not only am I married to a nurse, I have a daughter who's a nurse. I have 2 sister-in-laws that are nurses. I have a nephew that's a nurse. I am surrounded by the medical profession. So I don't listen to the others, because they're going to tell me what the truth is. And the thing is with Debbie has balanced her medical out with what the Word says. And we started proclaiming what the Word said about that situation. And I went from they saying having to have open heart or possibly a heart transplant to 1 stent. And I was standing there the other day and the thought hit me, said, okay, I think I feel better now than I felt in a long time. I'm feeling stronger. And sometimes when you're overwhelmed with something, it may take you a little while to walk through that. It may take you a little while to get back to who you thought you were before that event. Well, I'm ready to start doing some of the things that I was doing before. And I'm not as old as Rick right now, so I'm good. I've got some time. But I like his phrase. 69 and, what did you say, sort of fine?
Feeling fine.
Oh, feeling fine. I thought you said sort of fine. But 69 and feeling, I want that to echo in my ears. Because I don't think 69. I think I'm in my 40s. How I have a 48-year-old son this year, I don't know. But I guess, having kids before you were born, But overcoming fear, and I'm going to read this from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Anybody know who he was? He was a major evangelist, major pastor in Germany during World War II. And they actually executed him because of his beliefs and what he taught. But he has some great writings. And this says, the overcoming of fear that we are proclaiming here. He's talking about what Jesus said to the disciples in that boat. Why are you gripped with fear? Where's your faith? He says, what we're presenting, he said, the Bible, the gospel, Christ, the church, the faith are all one great battle cry against fear in the lives of human beings. Fear is somehow or the other the arch enemy itself. It crouches in people's hearts. It hollows out their insides until their resistance and strength are spent and they suddenly break down. When you let fear in, what do you say? When you let fear in and let it house in you, it will break you down to nothing. It will destroy what God is trying to do in you. He goes on to say this, fear secretly gnaws and eats away at all the ties that bind a person to God and to others. And when in time of need that person reaches to those ties and clings to them, they break and the individual sinks back into himself or herself, helpless, despairing, while all hell rejoices. The enemy wants to isolate you. Church is all about that. It's keeping us from being isolated. We're isolated enough as it is. My vision has always been, and I think it goes back to the coffee house days that were out there. The coffee house was open every day, pretty much all day long. And when I was a brand new Christian, I was self-employed, so I could go do what I want. I'd go to bookstores, I'd go to the coffee houses. I wanted the fellowship. I think church should be open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Now to do that, we're incapable of doing that right now, but it's something that I think that should be done. Why? Because there are people out there that are wandering today that will be wandering tomorrow, but tomorrow God may speak to them and they need a place to have fellowship. Well, guess what? That's what you do at work. You go to work and you're there as a representative of the kingdom. You're an ambassador, the word says. You're an ambassador of the kingdom to the world out there. And if the more word you have in you, that's what church is for us. For us churches to come in and get stored up with the Word of God so that we can be presented to the world as a place of refuge. Not us, but God. We're His representatives, so it is sort of us. It's to get them here, to get them into fellowship, to get them here on Thursday nights, get them here on Sunday afternoons, get them here on Sunday mornings, just to get them in the building. a lot of times we go about our business every day, and we don't necessarily think, well, I invite somebody. So I'm going about my business, and I've known this person for several years. She's a believer. She's going through changes in her life. She was excited. She just recently got baptized, the whole thing. And so I'm talking to her. I went by to pick up this stuff here. And I said, hey, we have Thursday nights. We have 7 o'clock fellowship, Bible study every Thursday night, 7 o'clock. So how many of you knew that? I just want to know, see how many are coming. But Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. And I said, well, come. Why don't you come and be a part of it? She didn't live that far. She's closer than Rick. And it's like so Thursday night I had to do the funeral, and so I was at visitation, and I didn't make it back. And Debbie texted, Michelle's here. Oh, good. So I raced her, and the thing is, as I was talking to her, I said, hey, we've got a women's luncheon coming up on September 4th, right? September 4th. Okay. So guess where she's coming September 4th. That was that easy to present that to somebody that needed fellowship. That's how easy it is to witness. That's how easy it is to get somebody coming to church. That's that easy. You don't have to be a theologian. You don't have to be able to quote chapter and verse. It's always that openness, that smile. Say, hey, we'd like to have you. Come visit. And we have Thursday nights for one. God told me to do Thursday night service for one reason. So that those that go to a Wednesday night somewhere else, and not many churches do midweek service anymore. He says, have it on Thursday so that you can invite someone that's going to another church or going somewhere out there wandering in the world. Come Thursday night. We should be packed out. We should end up sometime down the road where we're having Thursday nights right in here. Because there's so many people here. Now, our Thursday nights are great. I'm promoting it. Why? Because it's a good place to be on Thursday night, 7 o'clock to 8. It's a powerful time. It will help embed in you the word that needs to rise up in times of fear. So the disciples were afraid. They were afraid of dying. What caused the fear? They were fishermen. They'd been on the sea before. But what caused the fear at that time? Well, they were afraid for their lives. There's not one of us in here that wants to die. And I'm not afraid of dying. But why I don't want to die is because then I don't know what people are going to do when I'm gone. Not that I'm a major part of anybody's life. I'm just saying I'm a person that likes to know what people do. I like to be in the thick of it. I don't know what Debbie would do with all the money I'm going to leave her. She doesn't know we have it, but all I'm saying is a lot of times when we leave, it's just that transition thing. A lot of us are afraid of transitions. Well, that was the disciples, but Jesus said, look, have faith. Have faith. It says that we're going to have a sound mind, and He gave us sound mind and power and of love and not a spirit of fear. In Joshua chapter 1 verse 9 says this, have I not commanded you to be strong and of good courage? Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you everywhere you go. That do not be afraid is one of the most repeated phrases in the Bible. Why? He's trying to tell us, here's the thing that the enemy's going to use against you. It's the main tool he's going to use against you. Vince is all excited now. He's got a great new job. He's going to be working days. He's not going to be working Sundays anymore. He's going to be able to do what he needs to do in the kingdom. But yet, there was some apprehension, my guess was, prior to going. We use all kinds of different words to say fear. Apprehension, concern. There's others. But I'm sure he was apprehended at first when he's I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do that. As a matter of fact, I heard him say that. I don't know if I can do that. Vince is a very smart man, very good nurse. He'll do it with great ease. The thing is that we get into a mode. The enemy threw at him first was this. I don't think you can do it. That wasn't God speaking to Vince. If it's something coming against you negative and trying to tear you down and put you back or hold you back, it's not God. Fear is of the enemy. He says, but then that phrase there, that phrase that says, do not be afraid, that's not a suggestion. That's a command. Do not be afraid. And like I said, that command is often connected to don't be discouraged. 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 20 says this, and David said to his son Solomon, be strong and of good courage, and do it. Do not fear or be dismayed, for the Lord your God, my God, will be with you. Say, my God, will be with who? Me. That's right. He's always with us, right? We've already established that earlier. He is always there, always will be there through every struggle, everything that the enemy comes at you with. He's there with you. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 15 says, and he said, listen, all of you of Judah, you inhabitants of Jerusalem, and you, King Jehoshaphat. Aren't you glad that times have changed? How would you like to be named Jehoshaphat? Now, what nickname would you get out of that? When I was a kid, I was sort of chunky. Now that I'm not chunky now, but I have been thin in my life. But my guess is friends in the neighborhood would say, hey, Fatty, come here. If you're named Jehoshaphat, they're not going to go, hey, Joe. They're going to say, hey, Fat, come here. You know, then they're going to cut it off. So I'm glad they changed the names. I don't know why I went there. It doesn't matter. It says, King Jehoshaphat, thus says the Lord to you, do not be afraid nor dismayed because of the great multitude, for the battle is not yours but God's. When fear comes at you, you have the word of God in you to combat that. God has already won the victory over everything that needs to be victorious over, and so don't be afraid of it coming at you. You know, like yesterday, Aaron's climbing up this thing. We're handing him stuff up, and he's strapping things together, and he's doing all this. I'm thinking, man, it's like he's not even fazed by the fact that he's about 8 feet up in the air, 12 feet up in the air, 10 feet up in the air, whatever. I don't know. He's high, and he's bringing this stuff down. And it's like, but some of us, including me, I'm glad that's him. Because I don't know that I could have done that. Now, where's the enemy at? The enemy's in those words, isn't it? I don't think I could have done that. As soon as I say that, my mind shifts gears. Yeah, you're right, Bob. You can't do that. And then I'll hear my grandkids. Yeah, right, Grandpa. You get up there. Yeah, right, whatever. And Lainey, look at that. Grandpa got all scared on that one kid's right, you know. The thing is that when what we speak, again, what we said for years, we set our atmosphere by the words we speak. And as soon as you say, I think I'm afraid of that, or I'm afraid of that, you automatically have kicked into gear that negative panel that's in us as human beings that will absorb it and make it grow. Faith defeats fear. Remember that. Jesus said, your faith will defeat, to the disciples, your faith would have defeated what you're feeling right there. So when things are coming at you and you're afraid of it, you're not sure about it, if your faith in what God will do in you and has done in you should defeat it. It says, but we don't have to be afraid, and we should not be afraid. This is another Bonhoeffer statement says that what makes humans different than all other creatures, that's what makes humans different than all other creatures. We don't have to be afraid. In the midst of every situation where there is no way out, where nothing is clear, where it is our fault, we know that there is hope. And the hope is called, Thy will be done, Thy will be done. Our hope is in the fact that God says, I will take care of you. I will heal that situation. You know, think about animals. We live on a road where there's always a lot of deer. So we drive through, especially at night, we drive through watching the sides of the road, twisting through that road. But if you notice, you come up on a deer, and they'll scamper. They'll move quick. Why? Because you just feared that. You just caused them to be in fear. But think about animals. Think about any animal. Most animals are afraid. Even dogs that seem aggressive, they're aggressive because they're afraid of you. They're afraid you're going to harm them. The worst dog that you could have is one that has been abused. They're the most aggressive. Why are they aggressive? Because someone's harmed them. Someone's hurt them, and they're afraid of being harmed again. And we have to remember that we as humans should think different than that. Fear doesn't have to be a part of our vocabulary. It doesn't have to be a part of our life. It doesn't have to be a part of us at all. Psalm 56, verses 3 and 4 says this, whenever I'm afraid, I trust in you. And that you is a large Y, right? Why? Because it's talking about God. When you get into fear, you step back and say, God, I need you to explode in me right now. I need you to come up and protect me from this fear. He goes on in verse 4, says, and in God I will praise His word. In God I have put my trust. I will not fear. The psalmist is saying here is when I come up against fear, he says, I'm going to praise the Lord first. That's going to squelch all the problems that are trying to come at me. What I learned when I went through that period of time in my life, if I'd have reacted differently, I wouldn't have went through a year of near depression, if not depression. I wouldn't have went through all the time. I wouldn't have got angry if I'd have just trusted God that He had a thing. I look back. Obviously, we're able to look back in life, aren't we? We're able to look back at our mistakes. We're able to look back at our successes. But the best part of looking back at a mistake that God turns around into success, that's when it's cool. That's when it's the best. I look back at that time and He kept me in Bible college. I wanted to quit everything. Pastor Rick knows I was done. I was finished. I said, I must have messed up. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was back doing a business I didn't want to be in. I had no heart for it. My heart was ministry. And I was just done. And God said, no, you're not done. I'm not done with you. And He kept me in Bible college. And all of a sudden, I found out that you could go preach different places on Sunday by doing what you call pulpit supply. So I preached all over Illinois. I preached in Indiana. I'd have to get up at 4 in the morning to drive to Indiana to preach at a little bitty church or whatever, or drive all over. Had a couple of the churches, they wanted to hire me. As a matter of fact, one of them out in Ellisville, preached there. And see, God had a plan. God's plan was to get me here. Right here. But I had to get through that period of time, and God kept pushing me and nudging me. He said, going back and read that again, he says, wherever I am, I will trust you. Well, wherever, what does that mean? Does that just mean your physical presence? No, that means every part of you. Wherever I am, whatever situation I'm in, I'm going to trust God. That's how it has to be our mentality. He goes to verse 4, he says, in God I will praise His word. In God I have put my trust, I will not fear. What can flesh do to me? What can man do to me? We live in a world right now. Okay, let's admit it, COVID's real. It's real. It's a disease. It's no more real than cancer. It's no more real than pneumonia. It's no more real, in my opinion, take it for whatever it's worth, because people leave this earth through those also. Through the flu. The common flu. But COVID's cured all that. And I'm not knocking. I'm not, please understand where I'm at on this. We can be afraid of everything if we choose. I'm not afraid of the flu. Are you afraid of the flu? Are you afraid of a cold? Common colds will kill you also. But see, the thing is, it's not about the thing that's coming at us. We have to stand our watch. We have to be watchmen. We have to stand our ground. We have to be watchmen over the word that's been placed in us. And I'm not diminishing any of that. Please understand me. Nona and family have lost a loved one this last week. And the days ahead for them, it's going to be tough for a while for them. But the thing is that we have to stand and not get into fear. I'm not in fear of any of that. I said, died once, came close to it once, and I know there's a time coming. I know there's a day ahead. The thing that gets me about getting older, I don't think old. I really don't. I don't look old, do I? But I know there's a day coming. The day's closer than it was 10 years ago. That's what I'm saying is, I don't think about that. I think about what I can do today, what I can do tomorrow. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 18 says this, there is no fear in love. But perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears is not made perfect, He who fears not made perfect in love. You and I are being made perfect every day by the love of God that says. That's what was so cool about that song. It threw me back to the 70s. That song could have been written in the 70s. I actually turned to Debbie and said, that's a 70s. I forget what I said. I did forget what I said. It was sort of that could be a hippie song, I think is what I said. It had the beat, had the words. And in the early Jesus movement, that could have been written in the early Jesus movement. It wasn't, but it could have been. That's what we listened to back then. In Mark chapter 5, verse 36 says, as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, do not be afraid, only believe. Our responsibility is to believe. Our responsibility is to stay out of fear. In Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10 says this, fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Do not be afraid. How do we have dominion over fear? We choose the Word of God instead of the word that's coming at us that's trying to destroy us and take us out of the realm of the kingdom. You know, once you come into the kingdom, our responsibility is to get the Word so embedded in us. I'm not talking about necessarily having to quote chapter and verse. There's a few verses I can do that with. I can do that with Romans 12:18. I can do that with Ephesians 1:18 and 19. I can do that with Isaiah 40:31. I can do that with some. But it's about getting the Word so in you that it comes out of you in your words. Because that's all that happened with the Bible. Is in the King James. And that's the reason why when people redid the versions, what it was is they read it. It came out of them a little different and easier for us to read and make an understanding in us. I don't tell people, the worst thing you can do is hand somebody a King James Bible and say this is the only thing there is. Because it's not. Aaron has which one you read out of mostly? Easy to read Bible. I'd never heard it before until he did it when he's preaching and he read out of it. I thought that is so cool. Why? Because it causes it to absorb into you. It's just somebody saying, this is what it says here, this is how I say it. Speak the word in yourself so that when fear comes in, no, that's not right. I will not allow you into my life. Because the word says that I don't have to be fearful or dismayed. I don't have to be discouraged. I have a right to stand strong by the word of God. And it says, he says, you have little faith, why are you fearful? Those are words that we must hear. Again, here's Bonhoeffer. In those words, we must hear the disappointment of Christ and his disciples and all the love that he had for them. It wasn't a rebuke. It was an encouragement. Why are you afraid? When you read it in the King James, it sounds like a boom. But he probably said, why are you guys afraid? Where's your faith at? Man, I've been teaching in faith. You've been seeing all these things. Where's your faith? It was longer than what he's even reading there. Because he took the time to teach. He taught about faith everywhere he went. They learned about why were they so mighty when he left the earth? Because they understood what faith meant now. The answer to fear is your faith. He goes on and saying, Bonhoeffer goes on and saying, do you not still know that you are in God's hands? That's where I am, God is. Where I am, God is. Why are you so fearful? Be of good courage, strong, firm, adult, sure, confident, not shaking with fear. Don't hang your heads. Don't complain about what the bad times are. I'm in the boat. He says, I'm right here. Why are you afraid? God never leaves our side. He's always with us. And Christ is here too in this body here. So why don't we believe when we need to? It just takes us to train ourselves. It takes us to learn how to speak things the way he would speak it. The word Christian means you're a little Christian. Little Christ. That's what it means. That's the definition. If we're the little Christ, then we need to be speaking like the big Christ. We need to be speaking like he spoke. We need to be believing like he believes. And when we do those things, dominion over fear comes in our path and not outside of our path. None of us in this room have to be afraid of. I don't have to be afraid of a kid's right. You guys can all pray for me next time I have to get on. fear a lot of times comes with change. The thing is that change is part of life. Vince is getting ready to go through change in a couple of weeks here. His choice is to be afraid about it, or he's not, because I talked to him this morning. He's excited. He takes that apprehension and turns into anticipation. And anticipation. My anticipated goal is the next time I go to ride that kids ride, that I won't cry. Like I did last time. I couldn't wait for it to end. Is all I got to tell you. Is like, I'm just like, get me off of this thing. Stop it right now. My goal is to always approach things that cause fear in me to change. I have a trike now, and I ride the trike. Why? Because I don't have to be afraid of it. I don't have to be afraid about it falling over on me like the big one did before. But I also have a two-wheeler. It's a Sportster. It's a nice bike. It's fast. And I've ridden it once, but there's some apprehension in me. Apprehension, that's called fear. Because I've already laid down a motorcycle. And I haven't ridden a two-wheeler for a while. But I'm telling them, every day I get up, I go out in the garage, and I look at those two motorcycles. First off, it's a favor of God that I have them. It's a favor of God. But I look at them and I go, yes. I look at the blue and I just drool over it. I go out and talk to it. I'm trying to think of a good name to give it. I'm not going to give it a girl's name because then I get in trouble. So the thing is, then I look at the white bike and I go, you're mine next, and I'm going to ride you, and I'm going to enjoy. I see guys riding the two-wheelers down, and I go, man, I remember that feeling. I remember what it was like. So I'm going to ride that, but it's going to take me. I have to work to that place. I'm not telling you that I've got this mapped out when I'm talking about fear. I'm telling you that I'm finding a way to overcome the fears in my life, and that's what I'm asking you to do. Think about the fears you have in your life. I don't care how small they are. It is a starting point for the things to be greater. So I'm asking you today, take dominion over the small ones. However long it takes you to get on that bicycle, however long it takes you to drive that sports car, however long it takes you to just eat that salad. Where'd Hank go? However long it takes you to eat that salad. Just remember, you can do it all. You don't have to be afraid. I know he's not afraid of a salad too much. Just don't put it near him. He's all right. Him and Dustin both are funny. They're like little kids when it comes to eating. They won't eat anything that's good for them. They'll only eat the bad stuff. But don't be afraid. That's all I'm asking today is don't be afraid. Come against it. Speak to it. As Jesus spoke to the fear in that boat, what rose up in that boat was fear. It was presented by wind and waves, but all it was fear. And Jesus spoke to the fear.